we got some materials from FileMaker Inc. about FileMaker Cloud and a nice demo account, and it's a lot cooler than I thought it would be. I will say that. So this is the presentation slide they give us, and I'm just going to show it even with the notes because I certainly don't have them memorized. And this first one is just, all it really says is that they're going whole hog into cloud. That cloud is their future. Cloud is what they're going for. They're cloud is the future. Although I would say cloud is really the present, and they're a little behind on that. But good. It's good that they're going for cloud. And then this next one is a little more interesting. I'm glad I'm showing the notes because the slide just says new in cloud, and you don't know what that means. But down the notes it says that means that all the new features that they come out moving forward, they're going to implement first in cloud, is what it says here in the notes. That's an interesting thing to hear, especially since there are some features of FileMaker Cloud, FileMaker that aren't actually present in cloud yet. But that's interesting. Like for those of you who went to DevCon might have heard about possible new features in the future. It's like, I wonder if those are only going to be for the cloud at first. So yeah, as they come out with new things, they're implementing them with FileMaker Cloud first, is what they're saying. That, and they just want everybody to migrate to cloud and standardize on-prem footprint means they want everybody updated because they, need revenue. It's really what's behind that one. So yeah, they're very much going for cloud, and this one, frankly, isn't interesting, so I'm going to skip it. So cloud is out already. It came out, was it last week? I had it on my calendar, and I forgot what it was. But you can go sign up for FileMaker Cloud right now. It is in the store. And this is from the regular FileMaker. If after you go through trying to purchase anything, it brings you to this. So you can actually see the pricing online. And between $5 to $99, it's $39 per month per user. So yeah, depending on how many years, there's a slight adjustment. And for more than 100, call that. So for say 15 users, that's about what a lot of our customers tend to be at, $7,000. It's a little unfortunate that on the site, if you go to FileMaker Server with Teams, it says it's $15 a user. And they aren't very good at displaying here that FileMaker Cloud is in the cloud, and so you don't have to set up a server. They do that for you. That's all there.
So all that stuff is included in there, and that's why there's that cost difference, right?
Yes.
With the FileMaker teams and individuals, you're buying the license for FileMaker Pro, but you are responsible for setting up your servers and managing your storage and configuring the network. And if you want to do something on AWS, you have to set all that up yourself.
Yes.
But with FileMaker Cloud, it's just, this is your licensing, this is your hosting, it's all covered and it's all included in there.
Yes, including updating FileMaker Server. With FileMaker Cloud, you don't go in and manually update FileMaker Server. That's part of an automated process that's there. So
it covers some maintenance then too.
Yeah, and if anyone has ever had a whole lot of clients whose servers they're managing and had to go update all of them, that's a big time saver. So I'll go back to the PowerPoint. So yeah, it's on to buy right now, and so I looked at the pricing a bit because that's always what everybody cares about at first. Where it is depends. Where your server is going to be depends on where you're buying from. I'm curious whether or not there's any way to bypass that. Like if we buy it for a customer, but our customer's on the other coast, and we make sure it gets on that coast.
Based on the build-to address, right? So whoever you're building that to, that's going to control where the server gets deployed. Oh.
It's based on the license to address.
Oh, license to address. Okay.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So you can just put in their address. That's good to know. That was
Yeah,
not in
so-
the slide notes.
Yeah, the other thing is initial release is US West, and we'll be rolling out additional data centers over the next several months.
Awesome. Okay, so the next one is very good information. So depending on the number of users that you sign up for, the tier of AWS server will be dependent on the number of users. So basically how much, computing power, how much RAM, how much space. Yes, and space also. Space is covered on the next slide, I believe, is all dependent on how many users you say you have. And additional, you can modify it for that a bit through the, you could modify that. You can request more as it shows here. But the initial is based just on the number of users.
But as someone going to set it up, generally they give you tiers that make sense for the number of users that you have from what a basic deployment might be. So you don't have to be too concerned about what a T2 medium means if you're not familiar with AWS and you're trying to set that up,
Yes.
It makes that deployment process a lot easier and less mystic with these. What's a T2 large versus an M4 large?
Yeah, there's definitely, if you've ever done your own Amazon server deployment, there's definitely a learning curve in that a lot of people just would rather not climb that hill. And you don't have to. So yeah, you can just set it up, and if you find your server, it doesn't seem like it's got enough oomph, then you can pay to give it more oomph, and that's all you really need to know. So moving on. And then the storage, the actual storage space on the server itself is just 6 gigabytes per user, or you can pay $6 per 6 gigabyte block per year to add additional storage space if you have a very, storage heavy solution.
So I was looking at that earlier. That's a pretty good price for storage, I think, too, because if you're using EC2 and you're adding it on an EBS like hard drive that's attached, I believe the cost for that is 10 cents per gig per month, and this comes out to be like 8.3 cents per gig per month. So that's a pretty good rate. Yeah,
that definitely didn't strike me as anything any customer we have would balk at. Okay. And this one, when I came to it, this one struck me quite a bit. So for FileMaker Cloud, the sole authentication method is the new FileMaker IDs. No more regular FileMaker accounts for accessing solutions on FileMaker Cloud. So once you upload a file, even if you have the regular accounts in there, you can't access that file with them unless you download it for whatever reason to do some single user modifications or something, which is that is where you would want it. You would want to have that full access account for when you download it. So yeah, FileMaker ID is the only way to access your solutions on the cloud.
So that's a pretty big change versus a self-hosted FileMaker solution.
Yes, that's a big change. One thing, I think I'm getting through this, but I'm not sure it says it quite clearly. I think that also means FileMaker ID is only for FileMaker Cloud. I'm not 100% sure on that part. But I think for now, it's only being utilized for FileMaker Cloud. Don't know if it'll come to the rest of it. Self-hosted solutions or not.
Is FileMaker ID a credential set unique to just logging into FM Cloud?
Yeah.
That, yes. Gotcha. And we'll go over FMID quite a bit and how you manage the credentials in a little bit. It's a lot like Active Directory, was my impression going through it. So yeah, you upload a custom app to FileMaker Cloud is almost the exact same process as uploading it to any other server. The only thing is you have to add a FileMaker ID account to it before you upload it, and I'll show that here in a minute. And then it needs the password security, which is interesting since you can't use it needs password security for all the accounts on it, which is interesting since you can't use those accounts to access it anyway. But okay. And then containers need to be secure external storage. Another thing that it mentioned in the video, when you upload, it automatically adds encryption at rest. So if you haven't put it on, it generates a password, which you can then download or view from the new customer portal, is what they call it.
It has the encryption key in the customer portal?
Yes. You can just look at it if you can log in there. I think there's probably security, depending on what your account level is, whether or not you can access that changes. But that is where you can go look at it. Yeah, that also surprised me a little bit, but if they're automatically going to generate them for you, you do need some way to get to them. And then, yes, the new FileMaker Customer Console is where you manage all of this. So I'm going to go to that next. Actually, no, first I will show, so adding an account. I'm sorry, no, I'll go to the store. Okay, so this is the customer console, sign in. That is, why did it remember that? I don't believe I told it to remember that.
So good to know, though, two-factor authentication to get into the console.
Yes, you can turn it off.
But everyone should keep it on.
Yeah. I probably could have turned it off for this demo, but yeah, it is a nice demonstration of. And that is not just for getting into the console, though. That is also for getting into the files, because you use your FileMaker ID to get into the files. So if you have two-factor authentication on for your FileMaker ID, you're going to get that every time you log in to FileMaker.
Very interesting. That is good to know.
So this is the home. Finds me a little bit of the WebDirect front end. So this is the server. It shows you the server address and the files on the server. If you click on them, you can open them in FileMaker Pro Advanced. And then
Can you
sort.
scroll up to the top part?
Do what?
Can you scroll up to the top on here?
Okay, I'm up at the top.
All right, so this is not the FileMaker Server admin console. This is the FileMaker Cloud account admin console.
Customer console, yes.
Customer console, okay. And so this is where you're managing your users, groups, your servers, and like I said, the settings and subscription. This is where you would make your purchase and adjust your user counts, add people onto your account, adjust your server tier, things like that, right? Separate from the general FileMaker server administration, where you do things like your server schedules and managing opening and closing databases and things like that.
Yes, one thing, and I'm glad you said that because that reminded me what I saw in the video that wasn't in the notes. One thing you do not have access to through this or the FileMaker server admin console, which is present. Let's see, forget how to get to it. Post right here. This is the cloud. Really? I'm already in.
So from that cloud console, you can see the servers you have access to, and then pick an individual server to launch the FileMaker server admin console. Is that what you just did there?
Yes. So from host, what's interesting is, and it says in the video, like it shows you the number of drives, and it has host plural, like there could be more than one, but right now there can't be. It's one. This will be one server you get, and yes, there will only be one drive. You can't manage multiple drives or anything like that at the moment. My assumption would be they are thinking about moving toward you being able to manage those in the future, but yeah. And it has a nice link that will take you to the admin console, which also you use your FileMaker ID to log into. It looks like it passed that authorization right through. You do not have access to script schedules through the admin console. You have to use the FileMaker admin console API to set up script schedules.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, that one surprised me.
So the feature's still there. It's just not available through the GUI interface.
Yep.
For the FileMaker Cloud, FileMaker Server admin.
Yep. Script schedules are GUI-less. GUI-free. So, other than that, I believe it's, quite a bit just like the admin console you normally have, backup schedules, and all that good stuff. I'm not sure what OData is. It mentioned it in the video as well, but didn't really explain what exactly it is. But you can use the FileMaker Data API and something called OData. Yeah. And then Subscription Center, all that is right now is from here, you click this and it'll send you instructions on how to end your FileMaker Cloud subscription. So
that'll get enhanced in the future.
Yeah. So that's way over in the host. Some other really cool features though, before I go into all of these. One great one is this is your download page. No download link that expires, which I am not a fan of those because they're always expired when you want them. You can download the FileMaker Pro and Go, I guess, right from here. And this screen you can give access to all the users who are using the solution. You can send them here to download the software, depending on how you have their permissions set up. Like Team ID was something that would hide. They wouldn't be able to see that depending on what your security level is, but you can download it from the new customer center. That's a great addition, I think. Back to home.
That makes sense rather than having to keep track of those links separately, because right now I know everyone forgets those and loses the emails all the time.
They forget the emails, or the other really annoying one for me is they expire. They try to use them and they're expired. They have no idea what email we put in when we bought it for them. Sometimes we don't remember what email we put in when we bought it for them. So sometimes they're hard to renew. That's a nice feature right there.
I've had people leave the company, for the clients, and then they can't get to that person's email anymore. They didn't realize it was in there, and now they forgot to write it down or store it somewhere. And then you always end up having to call FileMaker customer service and get them to resend it to clients and things, where they're like, "Oh, I didn't think it was important. I just deleted it." So
yeah.
That's great. So it's just all here now, and you can just log in, and you always have access to it, and you don't have to worry about tracking those license keys and download links and things like that.
They can also use this as their launch page if they want. You can just click on that, and I'm sure that's FMP URL, but you can just open them in FileMaker Pro right from here. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that works with 17 or if that's targeting 18 specifically.
Can you see what the URL is for it? Because there's an 18, they now support the FMP 18 URL protocol specifically, which targets FileMaker 18. Can you put your cursor over that like open in FileMaker link?
Here?
Yeah, can you right click on that and copy what the URL is?
Copy here?
On the link, can we see what it's... You highlighted the word pro there, I think, so that's why it's doing that.
Well, I'm right-clicking on it.
Oh, it's highlighting it on there.
Yeah, and then just hitting copy, and I don't know if that's copying this
Yeah,
pro
it's just
or
copying the
rolling.
word, I think.
Let's see. Nope, that just copied FileMaker. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You could control
But
that
when I
in the
click on
future.
it, up here it's saying Open FileMaker Pro 18 Advanced. So my assumption is it's at least detecting it's either detecting I have it installed or that's all it will work with. Couldn't be sure.
Well, we could probably go look through the code and see what URL it's using, but I wonder if in the future they'll allow you to control and target a specific version of FileMaker through FileMaker Cloud with these links. So if you could say, like, this solution is designed for 18, please use the FMP 18 URL to open it versus, FileMaker 19, whenever it's something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. So that is also another nice feature. The whole introduction into how you get into the solutions, adding the host and all that is also a nice step to be able to skip. So the most interesting thing, let's go to users. Here's where you manage users, and you invite new users here. And to do that, all you do is enter their email address. I'll put mine in there. And here you can select to add them as a licensed user, which means that licensed users are going to take up one of those user slots, and they're going to be able to access the files hosted here. If you don't select that, they're not going to use up one of the license slots. And if you add them as a team manager, they'll be able to come in to the customer console and manage things here. So if you have some sort of administrator who doesn't need to use a solution, but is, the type of person who needs to be managing that for the company, you can add them in here. I'm going to go ahead and add myself as a licensed user. And then you hit send. And that takes a second. And so that sends an email which invites the user. They go set up their FileMaker ID, set up their password, and then they can log in here.
So can you have a user who's
what
not licensed and not an administrator, then what would the use for that be?
That I'm not sure, honestly.
Because I think you could have someone who has their own FileMaker license. Does it let you do that? Does it let you add someone who's neither of those things? Or do they have to be one of the two? If you hit invite new user here.
Let's see. And, well, I'll show this feature why I'm removing this. So this is pending. But over here, since they're just invited, I can withdraw the invitation, resend it. I can also remove them as team manager and remove them as licensed user.
Let's try that. Can we remove both of those?
So I'm going to remove them.
So they're team manager only now, but not licensed.
So now they're only a team manager.
Oh,
remove them as a team manager. Remove. So let's see what.
Do they just go away?
So they didn't go away. So the invitation is still there. So I'm not sure.
I think this would allow you to add someone into groups here. If you wanted to have another FileMaker ID user who you don't need to license, maybe because they have their own FileMaker licenses.
Well, that's what an external, which is odd because that's what you are, an external user would be, I think.
So here it's showing that because my account was created by a different group, so that's why. I think if they signed up, they would show as they would probably show as external there, but not licensed, not team manager. If they had their own FileMaker licenses and a separate FileMaker ID that was created and licensed through a different organization.
Well, you're taking up one of these licenses right now.
That's true, but you can mark that as an unlicensed user.
Can I clarify a couple things?
Yeah. Yes, please.
So FileMaker Cloud works like most other cloud services in that the licensing is tied to the FileMaker Cloud instance. So, if so every just having a FileMaker Pro Advanced license does not let you connect to FileMaker Cloud. You must be licensed into that cloud organization.
So can you clarify that? If someone has a solution hosted on FileMaker Cloud, and they've got their solution. It's they've got the contacts database that we've got uploaded on here, let's say, and I've been using that, and I want to grant someone access to that, and they have their own license of FileMaker Pro.
It does not work that way. The FileMaker Cloud is a completely separate product with its own completely separate licensing.
So if they have a license or if their FileMaker, because we can only grant access to a user who has a FileMaker ID. If their FileMaker ID I
can explain that one. If they don't have a FileMaker ID, the invitation will send them somewhere where they create one.
I know. I'm talking about in the specific solution. If we want to grant someone access to a specific solution, we can only grant access to a FileMaker ID. But if they have a license for FileMaker through another organization,
it doesn't matter. Every organization is licensed separately.
Okay. So if in this organization we want to grant access to a database that's hosted,
I'm getting there.
On this solution, they must use one of the licenses for this organization.
Correct.
Okay.
So that is why I only sent, which I thought they said that waited until they approved, but 3 licenses. Oh, available, right?
Yeah.
Only 2 are being used.
Yeah.
So this one's not being used. I think even if I add as a licensed user, I bet that's still going to say 3. If I remember right. Yes, until this user. Oh, no, it used it. Never mind. Oh, I remembered that wrong. But basically, letting people into your solution uses up licenses, and the users are unique. It is finally actual named users. In previous versions, that's what they called it. I didn't quite agree that that's what it was. It was really still just concurrent connections. Sorry. But yeah, this is real named users, and to let them access your solution, you have to eat up one of your license slots.
So, Rosemary, I don't know if you know about this, if you're a developer and you're working on a client, that client must purchase a license for you as the developer. Is that right?
Looks like
That's correct.
Okay.
And I will say that is the way every other cloud software works.
I'm not complaining. I'm just questioning. I was wanting to understand it.
Yes,
correctly.
that is correct.
All right.
And so another thing to go over is the external and managed. So as David mentioned, he's an external user because he already had a FileMaker ID before we got this sample license to use for the demonstration. So when an invitation was sent to him, it granted his FileMaker ID access to this, but his FileMaker ID is not managed by this temporary FileMaker Cloud account. Is that the right thing to say? Call it? Account doesn't seem right. This team. He's allowed access, but he's not. Even if Blue Feather goes away, he still has his own FileMaker ID. While mine, I believe, will then disappear and go away until I get another one somehow.
I think in this case, for the purposes of this demo, that account is showing as external because I think it's technically owned by Claris, because I think that's how they set it up in this case. So I think that's why it's showing that way.
Yeah, so Claris is managing your FileMaker ID. Oh, that's right. I think it reverts to Claris. I think if this team goes away, my ID will at least be managed. I think I read that it would be moved to Claris. So yeah, maybe you had one and then a team and made it go away.
I
Did
think
you
it-
ever-
I think it just got set up this way for this purpose. Sorry, I'm eating some pizza here.
Okay, no problem.
Well, the other thing is we also use FileMaker ID for the FBA licensing store. So at this point, most FBA members, or at least like the principal, the business owner, or whoever it is that's doing licensing transactions, will probably already have a FileMaker ID.
So that's why I had one. Okay, that makes sense. And I don't do that, so I didn't have one. So my first FileMaker ID was when I was brought into this. So I am managed by Blue Feather. David is managed by Claris. Anyway, so that's the difference between external and managed. And so your FileMaker ID can be granted licenses for, different cloud applications, but it will take up a license seat as well for each one of those separate teams. Okay. And then there are groups. Groups work very much like groups in Active Directory. You can create a group, and then you add users to the groups. That's the basics. What that actually means, though, is when you go into FileMaker, and for this, I think it's probably best to show this in FileMaker. Hold on. I have to log in. Solution. Oh, helps if I type my username correctly. Okay, and now this is, why won't this go onto the other monitor? Oh, so this is me actually signing into FileMaker. So as you can see, it's requiring I just type my username and password, and it is making me do my two-step authentication. Okay, and this is just the assets database, the template that is hosted in the cloud. So when you go into manage security, it very much looks like the old one, except you'll see authenticate via, you have Amazon, Google. Maybe Rosemary can clarify this. So can you use Amazon, Google, and Azure Active Directory with FileMaker Cloud?
No, you cannot.
No, you cannot. Okay, so those are there, but you can't use them.
And I will say that more specifically as a not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Those are definitely on the roadmap.
And even these, you can see I put, their accounts in there. You cannot use those to access this file right now because it is on the cloud. You'd have to bring it down before I'd be able to log in with my standard credentials.
So these
and it actually showed that up here, not supported on the current host.
Okay. So these authentication options that are on here for this file would only work if we took it off FileMaker Cloud and was trying to access it offline, like an offline copy of it.
Yeah.
Or
hosted
it somewhere else.
And this is also what you use when you're getting it ready to put up on the cloud is, the standard will be this, and then you go up here, and this says Blue Feather because I was already logged in. You probably won't be logged in the first time you do this. You go up here.
Well, that's showing which FileMaker Cloud this is hosted on, I think, right?
Yes, but also authenticate that. So I'll add a new account to show how that works. So this new account, that looks exactly the same, except that when you come over to new account and you don't type in an actual account name here, you select from the groups or users that you've set up on the customer portal. So you can add the users individually, or you can add a group. And either way, once you add them, you come over here and you can give either that single individual user or the whole group, assign it to a privilege set that you've defined in FileMaker.
So that's a little more convenient than when you're dealing with Active Directory groups. We have to make sure that the name is spelled correctly.
Yes.
It knows. You always get it right.
And I'm assuming, but haven't tested, and I don't think there was a note on this, that if you change the group name, I bet it just works. I don't know if Rosemary has any feedback on that one.
I have no idea on that one.
Okay. It might not. I'm not going to promise it, but there's a good chance that might just work.
Why don't we test it right now? Can you set up one of these groups and let's go rename one of the groups and let's see if that works.
Okay. Let's see. Then I won't be able to get in the file at all. Oh, well. It's not important.
No, don't disable your account here. We're testing
Well,
renaming the group in the...
I'm going to be the one logging back in. So if I don't disable my individual authentication, no matter what, it's going to let me in.
No, but we just want to see if the name admins gets updated in here.
Oh. All right. Okay.
Wait, no. You're going to lock yourself out if you do this. Yeah, leave that active. Yeah.
Well, I'm in admins, so
that's fine. We just want to see if that group changes because so you have a group admins here, right?
Yep. Okay.
Can we rename this group?
There we go. Rename group.
Because you gave that group. Yeah, that's good. Let's do that here.
So it changes them to administrators, and then go back to FileMaker. And I bet it refreshes. So yeah, that's been changed to administrators.
Oh, great.
So that's nice. So
that's also an advantage over Active Directory if you're using that for your groups. Because if you rename a group in Active Directory,
you're you're SOL.
Yeah, those users don't have access until you reopen FileMaker and go into each file where that group is used and update the name in the individual FileMaker solution.
So yeah, that's the basics. It's actually not very complicated, but it's a pretty awesome way to manage users for your solutions, and something you could definitely pass over to most clients. Most clients at least have at least one person who could manage this. Not all of them. So yeah, that's users and groups. I think if especially if you've used Active Directory before, that's not incredibly confusing and actually much simpler to use. Let's see, we went over hosts, settings.
I think another big advantage of that in an organization that does use, or if they don't have Active Directory, they don't have to set up something like that to provide group authentication for multi-file solution. So we've got some clients they've got a multi-file solution. They don't have Active Directory. We've talked about them getting that set up, but it's not in place yet. Without something like, you can still do it on hosts if you create groups on the host, but it's a pain for non-techie users to get in there and manage that.
Yeah.
Even if they do local groups on that host.
I'd say it's a pain even for techie users. It's doable, but it's not simple and it's not obvious. And again, this is definitely the most convenient way I've ever seen to be able to manage all of this.
Groups across multi-file solutions.
Well, I'd say even without the groups, even if they hadn't implemented groups, just the way you manage the users alone is still pretty convenient. That'd be still pretty easy to go into each file, and you're just selecting people from the people that are on the team. is still a problem. But again, yeah, but you're right. The groups also makes it way, way, way easier. And the way to move people between groups and what they can access. Yeah. Okay.
Can I follow up on a question that David had earlier?
Mhm.
So you said that when a consultant is working with their client, and they have to be a licensed user as part of the purchase group, is that correct? It's like if you get 5 licenses, then your developer needs to be one of those licenses?
Yes.
So once the developer is finished, does that license free up and can that go to somebody else at the company? And then let's say, 2 months later, David needs to tweak something. Does he then take that license away from somebody that works at the company and then once he's finished, it goes back, or is he permanently?
I think you'd want to make sure you have enough licenses for all of the users at your company. And you wouldn't want
Plus
to,
you.
plus a developer
Okay.
to work on that. If
So
you
even
if
if
you
it-
have an outside developer from that
But
company.
even if the developer's finished, then does that license free up to be used by another employee, or is it already taken because somebody used it?
You could de-license them. So Thomas,
Yeah.
he was making those changes there. You can just on the fly de-license someone.
Yes.
Okay, so
But I think it's probably. It might be.
So if it's a company of 5 employees and they want to get 5 licenses and they need to have you make a tweak, they could disable a part-time person and let you tweak, finish what you need to do, and then bring that person back in so they don't have to buy 6 licenses. For
That's
something-
definitely not what they want you to do, I think. But
Sure. But do you
It
want to
seems
pay
like that would work.
$39 a month for somebody that's going to tweak something once every 3 months? Or
Yeah.
something?
well, but
Yeah.
you're only paying for. I'm assuming you could actually just bump down the number of license you have after. I know you can upgrade. I'm not sure I saw anything about downgrading. Rosemary, any input on that? If you're talking, you're muted.
Well, and so the minimum group was 5. What about individuals or less than 5?
I don't think there is a less than 5.
Yeah, 5 is the minimum, but it is one. You can add 1 user at a time up to 100.
Issue.
So
Yes.
up to
Sorry,
99.
I lost the window there for a minute. Yes, so you can always add additional users, but you can only go back down at renewal time.
Okay.
So it's like that works the same as the old on-premise licensing.
Okay. So even though I'm sure FileMaker Inc. would rather you buy the additional license, if you are going to have a developer only come in for a week and do a tweak, you're probably going to want to remove somebody else, free up a license, and then give them that one, and then do a switch around. Because it's hard to justify your licensing.
Well, the other thing is we recognize that is a challenge and are looking at solutions. Like I can't promise when we'll have something, but that is a concern that's been raised by several FBA members, and it is something that we're considering options around.
Although I will say, it looks like FileMaker has also been working on ways to version FileMaker. I know that might be a ways away, but with the sort of XML import, that could be a possible future solution as to where you don't actually you don't have them develop on the FileMaker Cloud. You give them a copier or set up something to where they don't actually need to get in. Also, you could download a copy, give it to them, have them make their changes, and do something like that. Do a data transfer. There would be other ways.
That's a rough
There are other ways
solution
around.
for that. I thought that's a pretty rough solution, though. I think they'll come up with something smoother.
Yeah.
Well, and you're saying that you can increase the number of users on the fly, but you can't remove them until the annual billing hits its renewal? Is that what I heard you say, Rosemary?
That's correct.
Okay.
So yeah, for yes, a developer coming a week, you would probably use this, just unlicense somebody and then add them for that week. Although you could leave the developer in your team unlicensed, and so they aren't taking up a slot when you don't need them to come in and develop. Let's see. Is there anything? I think that's most of it. Let me.
But definitely a number of differences between a FileMaker Cloud solution and a non-FileMaker Cloud solution, besides just the licensing. Do you want to talk about some of those differences between those things?
A FileMaker Cloud solution and
A solution that's hosted in FileMaker Cloud versus a solution that's hosted in FileMaker Pro. I know there are differences between what you can do on like a FileMaker server that you're hosting yourself, or you've got in some other, like AWS, something like that, versus what you can do with FileMaker Cloud. The features aren't 100% the same.
they aren't the script schedules. Beyond that, I'm not sure.
Like I think PHP web publishing is not available in FileMaker Cloud.
Yeah, PHP, I'm assuming XML is also actually been kicked off. I'm not.
I think XML is not available on there. Plugins.
Plugins, I thought were available. Hold on. That's what I'm looking for. Let me go to the admin console.
And what about WebDirect?
WebDirect, yes.
Okay.
WebDirect does work. And correct, PHP and XML web publishing are not available.
Which
But
they,
data API is available.
which you should be switching to anyway. It's good for the most part. Yeah, and then actually, Rosemary, do you have any information on what this O data is? That is one I did not see any information on in the notes, and maybe I just missed it.
Yeah, so OData is essentially kind of the modern replacement for ODBC. So it is a way to, it is a more API-like or API method of doing ODBC type data queries.
Okay. So that is that a standard that's not something FileMaker come with? That's an external
Correct.
standard that had been set. Okay.
Yes,
I've never heard of it.
It is a new, yeah, it is a new new standard.
So we have new options.
So that's only available in FileMaker Cloud now, and is that gonna continue to be only available in FileMaker Cloud?
That I don't know. I'd say that's a good question for the roadmap webinar next week.
Okay.
The
Look forward to that.
the new company that FileMaker bought that has all the microservices and the coordinations and everything, is that just coming through FileMaker, or is there anything within Cloud that includes those? Or
So Claris Connect is a whole new product, and that again, best place for information on that is the roadmap webinar next week.
I will say, thinking of that is what picked me on everything's coming to cloud first, which was written on one of the slides. So that might be a hint, but yeah, no solid answers yet. So yeah, let's look at the roadmap. David, were there any other specific features? I think mostly it's the connectivity plugins. Were not available on FileMaker Cloud?
Yeah. I mean, that's correct.
Correct.
Okay. some reason, I had the mistaken impression that they'd been added. Okay, so plugins are also not available.
What about custom backup schedules too? I didn't see as many scheduling options in here. Is that something you do through the API? Like the the scheduled script you said you do through the data API, do you know?
Yeah, I don't see the ability to add backups, a backup schedule.
Can we do a, let's see here. Well, I guess the restore process is the same.
Oh, you can. Now, is that something that's on the newer admin console that I just haven't noticed on the regular FileMaker Server 18?
I don't think that's through a regular FileMaker server, but I think that's been part of the FileMaker Cloud thing, is doing the restores through the Cloud admin console, the old FileMaker Cloud.
Okay, yeah, I'm not. Honestly, I've never got a chance to use the previous version. So yeah, you can restore backups right from here. That is also another very cool feature.
And progressive backups, it looks like that might not be available as well, is it? Or is that, do you know if that's available through the data API? Or not through the data API, through the admin API. Backup schedules and progressive backups.
That I'm also not sure. I don't, a complete breakdown of the different features, I don't think was in here unless I missed it. Yeah. So I'm not sure on that one either. Rosemary, do you know if more control over the backups is available through the admin API?
I don't know. My guess is probably not. Like you have to think about FileMaker Cloud is it's really about being 100% hands off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you are handing the infrastructure management over to Claris.
Simplifying things as much as possible, I guess, right?
It's all about simplifying. I mean, if you think about it, the core audience for FileMaker Cloud is really the small business, the small business owner who wants to just not have to worry about server infrastructure or paying anyone for server infrastructure. They just want to be able to turn it on and just have it run.
Mm-hmm.
And the SSL certificate is included?
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
And that's all managed by Claris.
Okay, good.
That is another very nice feature. That can be quite a pain as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our get SSL script makes it a whole lot easier. But yeah, not having to do it all is even easier than that. And every time I've done a GoDaddy one, when a client's bought their own, it never goes right for a while. Let's GoDaddy certificates. So yeah, that's also a very nice feature. Also with the restore backup, you can pick which files from which backup you actually want to restore. So that's also a very nice feature. I'm curious what the timing is. Like I have two from, it looks pretty granular. Is that every 20 minutes? Well, no, these two.
Yeah, that's running every 20 minutes.
But that doesn't look consistent. Like this is, oh no, that is 20 minutes. Okay. Math. All right. Yeah, every 20 minutes. That is a pretty good frequency.
How far back does that go? I see there's 70 on there. Hit show more on there. How far back can we go here?
Yeah, I'm curious about the data load. What happens when that gets too heavy? But
Does that cut into the amount of...
I think these do count towards your storage space. Yeah. It seems like that could use it up real quick.
What's the default? Because if someone has to... what's the default?
Is this the default, Thomas? You didn't make any changes to any backup schedule?
I didn't make any changes to anything. I don't see any way to make changes to the backup schedule.
So does this, scroll down. Does this go back one day? Is that the farthest back that goes?
It goes to 1:35 yesterday, which is
looks like
probably,
that's like
I'm guessing
24
that's
hours.
about when I set it up. So,
UTC, so
Yeah.
or at least added files. Anyway. So, Rosemary, do you know how far back the schedules go and kind of how that works with the?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I would
Okay.
say that's a good thing to check the documentation for.
Okay.
And
Oh,
does
here it says, one second, it says up here, databases have changed, are automatically backed up every 20 minutes, backups are stored for 30 days.
Yeah.
There you go, on the screen.
Ooh.
But does it
That
give you
one-
any warning?
Good thing we can read.
Does it give you
Okay.
any warning if you're starting to run low on your storage
Yeah.
space?
I saw
Um,
something that FileMaker will email you if you're running low on storage space, apparently. So
Yeah, I'd want to also look to make sure, because if you're right, if the backups go towards that storage, 6 gigabytes per user is not going to be enough for most places.
it's pretty cheap to buy more storage, though. It's not a bad price. 8 cents. It's 8.3 cents per gig.
Definitely store containers either at least externally and possibly in S3 instead.
Well, so I think what you said earlier that that containers must be stored externally, but it still uses this storage space.
True. Yeah, externally.
Yeah.
That's right. They have to be external. And then, yeah, it still uses storage. But the backup in external storage is much more efficient, if I remember right, than when it's embedded in the file. Because it copies the whole file for that backup, while for external storage, it'll only mess with any containers that actually have changes, if I remember right. Not 100% sure I am there. And we're talking, but anyway.
So the entry point then is 5 users and about $2,500 a year, and does that include the AWS charges or?
Yes.
That
That-
Yes.
Okay.
It's the FileMaker
That's eight-
licenses plus your hosting and
Okay.
like the server instances and storage.
So yeah.
And updates and your SSL certificate.
Okay. But that is about the entry point is 5 users and approximately $2,500 a year.
Yeah, 2340. It says.
23, yeah.
2400. We'll say. Yeah.
Okay.
Although if you go out, it
Oh wait, hold on.
There's-
Was that the 2-year pricing? Oh no, that was the 1-year pricing. Okay, 2 years is 4300.
so 1 is 23, 2 is 43, 3 is 6.
It's
Sort
pricey,
of,
but it does
yeah.
make setting up a server way easier. And I see this being really useful. Like I had someone emailing me the other day that was just like, hey, we're looking at different hosting providers for a 3 user thing. And they've got a 5 user license anyway. This is easier than like dealing with all the different hosting companies and learning how all that works and figuring out. They're like,
Certificate install.
yeah, they're like, oh, we see these different pricing options here. Do we need these extra email hosting with them and things like that? It's like, no, you don't need that. This is pretty simple and straightforward.
Yeah. And again, the user and group management is just so much better than any way that I know of to manage all of that right now. Yeah. So yeah, definitely some great features. I am now very excited about the future of FileMaker Cloud. So
Yeah, I think some adjustments to the way users across license groups work will be impactful for developers, for sure. I think one thing that I'd like to see connected to this at some point in the future is some sort of Active Directory connection for those organizations that manage things through there.
Yeah,
If
she
they have
said-
a lot of users, that would be useful.
yeah, she said not there yet, so I'm
Mhm.
guessing that one's already in the works,
Yeah.
or at least on some planning board.
Mhm.
My guess, and Rosemary, you don't have to comment on this, is that eventually they're going for no. This is it. This is all of it, kind of.
I think there will always be a need for offline databases. So if FileMaker server, the local deployment was going to go away, I think it'll be a ways out, because I know a lot of people have servers in locations that do not have internet access.
Well, FileMaker probably isn't making much money off them, so.
No, I mean, FileMaker's been profitable for a very long time now. But I imagine there's going to be a push towards this being the primary way that people deploy FileMaker Server, similar to how everyone here, we've all been using cloud hosting for deploying FileMaker Server on AWS versus recommending that people buy server hardware to put into their office.
Well, so how does this compare to an AWS setup where you buy and install your own FileMaker?
And this is a lot less maintenance.
Right.
And it's faster.
But price-wise?
So we can do some calculations on that, I guess.
Yeah,
T2 instance for this, you might spend $60 a month for a T2 instance times 12. So that's going to be $720 a year for that. FileMaker licensing, I think, is $900 for 5 users for the regular self-hosted solution.
here, we can, because that would be
FileMaker
Teams.
server teams, yep.
It's taking a sec. Oh, come on.
And is that license, does it have an expiration or is that per year?
Both of those are per year. Yeah.
Isn't
That's
there
all
a buy
ongoing cost.
straight out license?
There is, and it's usually about 3 times the cost of the perpetual licenses are usually 3 times the cost of the annual license. So
Here we go.
if you're gonna
900
buy a
flat.
perpetual license, you're gonna say we're gonna use this version of FileMaker for more than 3 years without wanting to upgrade. My experience is that people always want to upgrade, and particularly with Mac OS making significant changes to desktops. Like Catalina is huge and it's breaking everything. Windows 10 is now being distributed as a service with major OS updates twice a year. They've got the spring and the fall OS updates that can be pretty significant. Hardware is changing rapidly. Going 4 years on a perpetual license, at this point, I imagine would be tough for IT departments to maintain compatibility with. And so my recommendation for everyone is go for the annual licensing and get the updates and get ready for those. And because then you get all the new features too. I mean, we got multi-threading recently on FileMaker Server, and that's pretty big. And it's a pretty big performance improvement in the right use cases. And so, you keep your compatibility, you get all the new features, get performance improvements, security updates. The perpetual license is not something that I frequently recommend for people. It's also expensive. So.
With AWS, can't you say with Fortune if you can shut the server down at night, whereas cloud you can't?
So you could write a program that's going to schedule turning your server on and off automatically, or you could manually go and do it and turn it on and off. For most companies, that's probably not something that is worth the cost to do. If they've got 20 people accessing the database, someone's going to try to get onto it at home one night because they forgot to finish their work for the afternoon. You know what I mean? Right. And the cost of running the server is probably not worth the loss of productivity and the maintenance required, the time required to properly turn that on and off each day. If you're doing something like AWS, you can rather than doing just their basic monthly no commitment, turn it on and off whenever you want plans, you can buy longer term contracts where you rent a server for a year essentially of a particular tier, and then you definitely would just leave it on and you get a discount when you do that. So if you're like, we need a T2 medium and we're going to run it 24/7 for the next year, rather than just doing the hourly licensing for that server, you buy the prepaid or just contracted purchase of that server and you get a discount for it too. So yeah, it's cheaper to do it that way. I think for most use cases of FileMaker, I mean, you're right, you could get it hourly and turn it off each night, but it would have to be a very small number of people using it to make that worthwhile, I think. And it's a lot of maintenance to remember to do that all the time for the cost savings that you could potentially be getting from that.
That does remind me, another thing with FileMaker Cloud, and I think it's in the old version and it's in the new one, there's a maintenance restart every night. It reboots every night. as part of the maintenance. And I think I read if there's users on it, I think it was said that it won't reboot unless there is a critical update. I'm not sure about that. I almost like the idea of it going ahead and booting all the users because it's really annoying when they leave their computers connected. But yeah, the standard is FileMaker Cloud reboots the server once per night.
So we're looking at cost differences between getting your own AWS instance and buying an annual license of FileMaker and then deploying it and managing it yourself. The base cost just for the hosting plus the FileMaker license, if you got a T2 medium server, would be around $1620 per year versus the FileMaker Cloud, whatever it was, $2350, something like that. So that's a $700 a year difference about. You have to do the maintenance on the EC2 instance yourself. You have to install the Windows updates, the security updates. You have to manage the SSL certificate yourself. You have to remote desktop into it to do all that, which can be challenging for people. In addition to just figuring out how AWS works, which if you're not a techie person, it's just not going to happen. So it is cheaper to do the EC2 instance, but I don't think FileMaker Cloud is targeting the high involvement, high tech people who want to do that kind of maintenance themselves, and are going to look for the absolute cheapest dollar solution as far as just the check that they're having to write for this. FileMaker Cloud seems to be much more targeted on simple deployment, easy setup, the people who just were like, hey, I want to access it online. So if you just want to access your application online, which is a lot of people, then it's a really clear answer now is just, sign up for FileMaker Cloud and send your file up there, and now you can access it from anywhere. And that's all you have to think about. That is the end of it. Server management, remote desktop, IP addresses, firewalls, security updates, SSL certificate installs. That is a whole other level of involvement that a lot of people are not interested in doing. And there's a cost for that if you're not doing it yourself. You got to hire someone to do it anyway. So,
Now, is Open Remote still available in the newer versions of FileMaker?
For when you say Open Remote, are you talking about to connect to FileMaker server for?
Right, if it's just in an office and you wanted to remotely access it, is that still?
Like hosted on another FileMaker Pro client or hosted on FileMaker server? What do you mean by that? Like FileMaker Pro, even the version that you get from FileMaker Cloud.
Even advanced, if you had like File, Open Remote, you could have a dedicated address that goes straight to it. So if somebody wanted to log in remotely, they could. Is that still, has it been disabled now that they're going to cloud, or is it still there? You can still run FileMaker server in your office if you want, or on AWS or wherever. You could have it available in your LAN. You can still technically share files with FileMaker Pro, up to 5 users. Right. But I think at this point that's been relegated to for testing purposes only. And it's not officially, it was a bad idea to begin with, I think, hosting files that way, but you definitely wouldn't want to do that now. It's not officially a supported way of running and providing access to a FileMaker database.
Another thing I forgot to mention is once you've logged into with your FileMaker ID in FileMaker Pro, the host, any host that, any team that your ID is associated with, that you're licensed, I'm assuming that it's if you're licensed for, but I'd have to test that one. They automatically show up in the host list. So yeah, this, you don't have to go to your users and be like, all right, now you need to go in here and type this address. Okay, and now you'll see them come in, and now you need to add that to favorites. You don't need to do that anymore either. Once they log in, it'll automatically be on hosts, and then let's see, file, and then in this My Apps, there's also My Apps. instead of favorites.
So your
That's
FileMaker
also
Pro is signed in with your FileMaker ID right now. The desktop application, you're signed into the desktop application, not just a particular
Yes.
server.
yes. With FileMaker Pro, I'm signed in to my FileMaker ID, and so I have my app. So all of the solutions. Oh, I have to go to show my apps. So in the old one with the favorites recent, once you've signed in with FileMaker ID, this new My App shows up, and all the applications you have access to through your FileMaker ID and any of the teams that you've been associated with, they all show up here. That's
Across-
also pretty cool, and that's
across all
automatic.
servers.
It's not. It's once you sign in, they're there. You don't have to
The
have
number
your
of
users
server
go for it.
Well,
addresses.
so
Hmm?
David, as the consultant, then, if he's dealing with 10 clients and he's got his FileMaker ID, which I'm assuming it's just assigned one time.
Yeah, so I have one
regardless
username
of
and
all
password.
regardless of whatever client you're working with. So if you have access to your 10 clients and
They've licensed me
they've
onto
licensed
their
you onto
FileMaker
their
Cloud.
FileMaker,
Yep.
and you're listed on that, when you log in under your FileMaker ID in FileMaker, you'll be able to see all the databases across all 10 of your clients that you are
That
allowed
my
access to.
FileMaker ID has been granted access to. Yeah, not just being part of their organization. If they've got 100 databases on there, but I've been granted access to only one of them,
So when you're looking at that list, and I'm assuming it's just then a name of a file, and it says contacts, what if all 10 of your clients have a file named contacts? Is there a way to differentiate?
See this
Which
blue
one?
feather right here?
Okay.
I'm assuming, this is an assumption, but I think it's a safe one, that if you're in different teams, they'll be broken up into sections.
gotcha.
Like blue feather will be all listed here, and then, Betty Crocker, and then all the Betty Crocker applications they'll be divided like that. I don't know if Rosemary knows whether or not that's true or not.
I think that's true.
Yeah, that looks like that's what's that.
Yeah.
That looks like that is what that's there for. Yeah.
I think that's a pretty safe bet. That's what
So
that
we'll
thing.
learn more about that during the roadmap this week or next week, is that what you said?
No, I think that's in place now. It's just we just don't have multiple accounts to
Okay.
show files on here. So, but we're only seeing the one that this
Mm-hmm.
account is connected to. But that's cool that you're signed into the application. It's not like you're logging into the server or a particular host. You don't have to enter a host address, and tell everyone, hey, it's this. Don't forget what your server address is, so you can connect to it. It's just you sign in. Here's your username, password. You sign into FileMaker. And then everything is there, even if it's hosted in all sorts of different places.
And that's the FileMaker that you downloaded from the console to your machine itself, right?
Yes,
No,
FileMaker Pro
this-
is a desktop
As
application.
a desktop.
This version of Pro is just the one I've always had. I didn't download a new copy.
Right, but if you didn't have
It's
one,
already
you
there
wouldn't
in
have to-
18, and it'll just get activated basically if it's there. I think if you download it from the console, it'll already. I'm assuming that feature will already be there. And Rosemary looks like she has a comment on that.
Yeah, so all of the updates that work with FileMaker ID and FileMaker Cloud are in version 18.0.3, which came out last month, either late September or early October. So in addition to having all the macOS Catalina updates in it, it also has all the managed security update and the login with FileMaker ID and all those updates in it. So as long as you've either run the update or you subscribe to FileMaker Cloud and you download the version from FileMaker Cloud, it will all work.
So yeah, if you go to My Apps, like here, favorites just works as it always has. But if you go to My Apps, I just signed out, and you can just sign back in, and then boom, they all show up again. Yeah.
Okay, so you get cloud, and how many copies of FileMaker Pro you can go and download?
So you get 5 licensed
five
users.
licenses that you can use.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good.
Right, and it's user-based licensing. So if you've got a machine in the office and a machine at home,
You can install it on both. of them.
that's
It's
one.
two
You can
things.
install it on both, and that's one license.
Yeah.
Because it's, you're only because it's that named, it's true named user licensing.
The copies of FileMaker Pro you download through the cloud app, can they connect to non-FileMaker Cloud servers?
That I don't know.
Okay. I would not be surprised if that were a no, because that would make a lot of sense, because otherwise you've got a free FileMaker license. But yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Up to that. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Enjoyed it. Very good. Thank you.
See you.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Bye. See you, Earl.
All right, are you all set, Thomas?
Yeah, that's about all I have to say. Except that, yeah, again, I think this is pretty exciting. There are definitely some really cool features. I really like the customer, the customer management interface. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward over the next few years seeing how this progresses.
I like the two-factor authentication too.
Yeah, it gets annoying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, what is the trigger for that? Like when?
And what I want to know actually from this is, can we preserve our credentials? Like, you can do like save my login in Keychain. I wonder.
I believe it said auto login is not supported with FileMaker Cloud
Yeah. Okay.
in one of the notes.
Okay.
Let me do a quick. I can search the document and see if.
Well, we're running over on time quite a bit here, so I think we've covered most of the stuff here. But thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks for going through all of this. This has been great.
No problem. Sorry, I don't know some of the more technical details, but yeah. All right.